Good day, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of Plant Consciousness Live. Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome one of our supporting partners. I'm going to be speaking to Sara Turner, who is the head of the British Flower Vibrational Essence Association and runs her own essence and training practitioners business with flower essences. Good day to you, Sara. How are you doing?
Yeah, good day, David. Thank you for inviting me, and we're really pleased to be supporting your plant consciousness event. And I'm happy to be here to share all about flower essences.
Thank you so much. We haven't really had much of a chance to talk to any of our other guests in the recent editions about flower essences, but they are a very important part of this year's Plant Consciousness event. We will be talking to Stefan Ball from the Bach Centre in about a week's time. But today we're going to be talking to you, and we're going to be bringing in the energy of the flower essences and of BIFA. And first of all, I'd like to just talk to you and get a little bit more knowledge about you and your background and how you came into being the chair of BIFA and to your own flower essence business.
Yes, well, it's a long story. I guess many of us who are in this kind of world, it is a life's journey. We never really plan to end up where we are, but I'm really pleased that I have. My life has changed significantly since I began working with flower essences. I guess it all began back in my late 20s when my dear dad died really, really suddenly, and I needed to find emotional support at the time to continue with my life, to support my mum, and I found flower essences. And that was the beginning of it. Then through my 30s, I had extremely unhappy years, struggling with infertility and just finding my way, not knowing who I was. And everything changed when I committed to a life of finding out more about why I was here. And the flowers have been very much my journey. In my 40s, I became a professional in flower essences. I trained with Claire Harvey, and I became a flower essence practitioner. And I'm a teacher by profession. It's what I've always done, so it came very naturally to me to start my own training school. And it's the training school, essentially flowers, and I ran a practitioner course that's really changed everything. And it's very humbling to see how people can really, when they commit to deep change and they have a love of the nature kingdom, how they truly become themselves. And when we become ourselves, we find the courage to do that, then everything changes. So that's how my life evolved. Fairly recently, I was invited to become the chair of the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association. I hesitated for a while because I'm extremely busy, but I had some big, big nudges from the nature kingdom, from the angelic kingdom, and from people on the committee. So this year I said yes, and so it's very much part of my passion to share as widely as possible the potential of flower essences, the potential of vibrational medicine, and it's my role as chair that really helps me do that. So here I am today in that guise.
Excellent, and it's actually probably just worth bringing to light to the viewers listening just how we actually got in contact ourselves. It was through one of our other partners, Caduceus Magazine, who featured an advert about your Essence Awareness Month, which was, I think, back in May. And that prompted me to get in touch with you, and subsequently BIFA have become a supporting partner of Plant Consciousness, which we're very, very happy about. And just listening to your story there about your own personal experiences earlier in your life, and actually what kind of, I guess, in almost some ways brought you on to your spiritual path. It's always interesting, I find, to hear so many people talk about nature as a healer, and to hear your experiences of that as well. Can you perhaps just elaborate a little bit more on that and how you really feel the flowers have helped you in your own processes?
Yeah, well, they helped me back in the very dark times after my dad died in the very obvious ways, because I became unwell myself due to stress at that time. It was quite unexpected, and, you know, plummeted into the world of antidepressants. It felt worse, didn't realise why. Turned to flower essences. I didn't know very much about them at the time. I was very much being guided by another practitioner. But they sparked, they opened a door in me. Something was opened that I didn't understand. And I went on to be one of those kind of like completely mad people that read everything. And I worked with the Bach or Bach essences, got all the books, treated everybody on the planet, whether or not they wanted it or not, one of those people. And then that led me into finding out about other ranges, and my whole world changed when I realized that there were other ranges of flower essences from all around the world. And it was at that point that I really started realizing that my own unhappiness could be transformed. And again, it wasn't necessary, I wouldn't have used those words back at those times, but I very much needed guidance and support that everything was going to be okay. And I just really followed my heart, followed each mini step that presented itself in front of me. And it was through my own learning to be a practitioner myself, because when we learn to be practitioners in a modality, we have to take that journey ourselves first and foremost. And I dived, if that's the past tense of dive, but I dived very deeply into my own journey and worked with many different people, many different modalities, but I've always had the flower essences at the center, nature, and felt great solace. I call her Gaia, the planet Gaia. I felt great solace from connecting to her, from the trees, and really and it was when I became a practitioner and started training others and actually found the courage in myself to say, this is what I do. Because we kind of hide often behind our own labels. We say, I'm a flower essence practitioner. And we kind of say, oh, well, I work with these bottles and this is what I give you and everything. But actually, it was when I found the courage to say, I work with the elemental kingdom. I work with the Davyd kingdom. Yes, I work with the fairies. I work with the flower divas and the tree divas. And it was when I had that courage to speak that out loud that I found that everything started to shift, and I started getting contact from people saying, I'm so pleased you shared that, because that's what I do too. So I really feel that it's time for us now, and I think it's part of my role as the chair of the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association. And I've shared this publicly as a chair, that I've been called to do this, and I've kind of been called to speak up and be brave and say, this is what we're doing. We're working with a different level of consciousness here, and how amazing it is when we do this, and how our own personal lives can change. And therefore, if our personal lives can change, then so everything else around us changes. And it's a cliche, I know, but it's how the world can actually change.
I think it's really important, just listening to you talking there, that this is a time when people stand up for what they believe in and stand up for what they're doing and stand up for themselves. And it's interesting, through the course of organising the Plant Consciousness event, we've had so many emails from people all over Britain, but all over Europe and other parts of the world as well, who said to us, wow, I've been talking to plants for so long, and they've been talking back to me, and nobody believed me, or I didn't feel brave enough to tell anybody about this, because they would think that I'm crazy. And now that now there's an event that actually is bringing all of this into the public domain and saying it's okay. There are many of us that talk to plants, and many of us that believe that nature has an intelligence that is trying to communicate with us, and at this time that this information is being brought to a much wider audience, so that they too can share in the possibilities. And just hearing you talk about that really, again, re-emphasised why it's so important that we have people like yourself and the organisation be involved in our event, because this is really what we believe in. So just moving on a little bit, or expanding on the theme of the essences, for those of our viewers that don't know, perhaps you could give a very, very short explanation of how essences in all of their entireties actually work.
Okay, well, maybe I should just start by explaining a little bit what a flower essence is. There are many different ways of making flower essences. I'll just talk about the traditional way, which is the way the Bach or the Bach Centre use today. There are other ways as well. Basically, we take blooms of flowers, wild flowers or flowers from the garden, and with permission from the flower, from the elemental that overlights the flower, they're placed in water, fresh spring water in the sunlight, and they're left there for several hours. We then remove the flowers, and what you're left with basically is a bowl of water. That water has somehow, and nobody really understands this, even those of us who do this, we don't really understand, the water has alchemized with the sun, and the color vibration, the signature of the flower has somehow transferred itself into the water. So then the water is actually, that is the flower essence, that's the vibrational essence. We then need to preserve it, so we add brandy to it to make a mother tincture, and then it's diluted down into different dilutions to make the finished bottle. I can actually show you one here. This is the finished product here. This is actually one that I took shortly before this interview. It's one of the Findhorn flower essences called Voice Confidence. So it's just really nice to take if you're needing to use your voice and basically to speak your truth. So this is what they look like when people buy them. You can buy them in dosage strength, which is what this is. This is a ready-to-take essence. Or you can, very often you buy them in stock strength, which normally it very much depends on smaller bottles, and you can dilute them down. But you don't actually have to. The main thing about flower essences is that they're really safe to take. As long as you're okay with ingesting brandy, then they're very, very safe to take. They can be taken during pregnancy. They can be taken by a mother while she's breastfeeding. And probably the best way to take them, if you're not too keen on brandy, if you want to minimize the brandy, is just to put some drops in a glass of water. And then the actual amount of brandy is very minimal going through the system. So mums who are breastfeeding can take them, can take essences during pregnancy. Babies, well, we probably wouldn't give them to tiny babies, but little children can take them. Elderly people can take them, so both ends of life. They have no contraindications at all. They're extremely safe. So in a very sort of practical way, we use them to help us with our emotions. They don't treat the physical, they treat our emotional selves. So if we're feeling anxious, and who doesn't feel anxious sometimes in today's world? We've only got to switch on the television and it can trigger in us feelings of anxiety. We can take things for if we feel depressed. If we have any shock or trauma, this is where the rescue remedies come in beautifully, and most people watching now can probably have heard of the rescue remedies. Keep one in your handbag or just in your car, because you just never know when you're going to need it. And something like a rescue remedy, what it will do is when we have a shock or a trauma, flower essences treat the subtle energy of the body. So it's the energy around us, and what we literally leave our bodies. We say, don't we? We jump out of our skin. So there's something that at the moment is a great thing to do. The greater consciousness within us kind of removes ourselves a little bit from the situation, which is what shock is. And that's great at the time, but it's not great in the long term. So the flower essences will help to realign the subtle energy once again, and really help us come back into our bodies, help us feel and process what's happened to us. And it's from that place that we come out of our heads back into our hearts. And we kind of know what to do. It will be very individual, but it's always, always the right thing to do. People, if there's been anger or resentment, if people have stopped talking to each other, hearts open, words come, people find ways of repairing situations. They find their voice once more, they find able to say things that they couldn't say before. And there's great healing potential. Children particularly love to use flower essences. They adore them because they haven't lost that part of them that gets lost when we grow up, when we kind of go to secondary school and we kind of think, oh, well, it's not cool to do this anymore. So children get that they're working with flowers, with plant consciousness. They get that completely. So, yeah, so I hope that's helped a little bit to know how flower essences work.
Most definitely, and actually you touched on the most famous of all the flower essences, probably certainly in this country, which is the rescue remedy. And I often find it interesting to see how many people I talk to who carry a rescue remedy in their handbag or you know on their person for those kind of moments that you talk about, but actually really had no idea of how they work at all, and had no real comprehension that there was no part of the flower actually in the bottle. That's often quite a shock for most people. Then their kind of obvious question is, well, how does it work? If there's nothing the flower in the bottle, how does it work? And I always find that's actually a great opener to talk more about some of the ideas of what plant consciousness as an idea is about. And again, that's why we invited Stefan from the Bach Centre to present on the programme, and why we're happy that you're involved, because I think it's a very important part of the kind of the much more expansive idea of what plant consciousness actually means.
Yeah, in the fluorescence world, and Stefan's great. You'll have a great interview with him, and I love the Bach or the Bach essences. They are a core of my own daily life and what I teach my students on the practitioner diploma. But I think it's also what changed me significantly as well, and I think it's nice to share this with the people watching this, is that there are also many other ranges of flower essences, and they can, if sometimes we need different kinds of vibrations. So the Bach or the Bach flower essences are very specific. They're great for treating our personalities. They're great for everyday, excuse me, everyday events. We all have certain types of characters that respond in certain types of ways. There are many other ranges, like the Alaskan range of flower essences that come from that extraordinarily pure country, where there's the plants, many plants there have never met human beings. They don't, so it's a very pure consciousness there. And because of the purity of the country, it's an extraordinary range of essences. Another very well-known range is the Australian bush essences. And Ian White has done an extraordinary job of allowing people to touch into that in very practical ways. I've got one just sitting here, which I use, the electro essence, which is great for people who work a lot online, who get affected by the electromagnetic energies. So Ian's done a great job of bringing combinations of essences in that work very practically for people. So we don't really need to get what they do, but we just take them. So there's all different ways we can tap in. But I think the important thing is that however we do it, we're working with the plants.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we actually have different friends who also make their own flower essences. A good colleague of ours works a lot with Amazonian plants, and she developed the Sacred Tree Essence range, working with plants such as Camelonga and Sanango from the Amazon, which are more traditionally used probably in shamanic work and shamanic activities. But she, as a tree shaman herself, as a trained tree shaman from South America, she's actually distilled the energy of those plants into flower essences, so they can be used in a much more gentler, perhaps less invasive way than the plants would perhaps be used in South America. With the organisation that you are now the chair of, with the BFA, the British Flower Vibrational Essence Association, what is the direction that this organisation is now moving in under your chairmanship, and what is your vision for the future with this, and how can people get a bit more involved in the organisation itself if they're already working with essences?
Okay, so if people don't know about our association, it's the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association. Our website is bfvea.com. It's a bit of a mouthful, so I often refer to it as the BFA. Some people say the F bit, some people Beaver, so it doesn't really matter, but you can find it quite easily if you just type in BFVEA. It was an organisation that was established back in 1998 in order to serve and support the best interests of flower essence practitioners. So we're very much partly about supporting professionals and allowing a friendly and safe place for people to gather together as professionals. And interestingly, we have actually just joined hands with the Bach Centre and Stefan Ball, to form a new organisation called the Confederation of Registered Essence Practitioners, another mouthful, which is called COREP, C-O-R-E-P, and the website is corep.net. And that's actually moving another step forward into the sort of professional side. People that belong to COREP can actually have now inroads into the National Health Service. So it's really, really exciting. It's all very new. It just came about last year. The previous chair, Jan Stewart, did an amazing job of really establishing what I see as kind of like the root chakra of all of this, making it very secure, very safe, and very possible for people in this modality to become quite visible and to have more reach. So how exciting that flower essence practitioners now have equal standing along aromatherapists, reflexologists, and how amazing that it's still the baby steps right now that we are actually possible to work within, let's say, a hospital or GP setting. So that's really exciting. So there, the root chakra is there. The BIFA also exists to provide resources for the public. So we also welcome people who are not practitioners and who really just wish to find out more about flower essences, like yourselves. You know, it's great that you've come on board here. When you can, there's a membership, and for a very, very reasonable price, anybody can, practitioners or not, can become a member and receive this lovely, lovely magazine 4 times a year, which is full of amazing articles. This particular one's got one by Steve. You've got one too. It's a good magazine, isn't it, David?
It is very good. I particularly like some of the articles. There was a great one in an edition just a little while back that was about working with mushroom essences. I'm a big fan of mushrooms, and I was very intrigued to read that somebody decided to make an essence out of psilocybin mushroom. I can only imagine what the energetic vibration of that is, but I imagine that it's quite a strong one. But yeah, the magazine's great, and I heartily recommend any of our listeners to try and pick up a copy and to take out a year's subscription, because it's also donating towards a very worthwhile organisation.
Yeah. So I see my role, really, to come back to your question now. I have a great love of social media. I love the internet. It's what's kind of allowed me personally to share my love of flowers and trees and plants. So I kind of know how to do this. It's embedded within what I do. So I'm hoping that what I'm able to help the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association with is really just getting the message out there more widely, a little bit like this interview. So thank you for inviting me, because it's all part of, I think, the bigger plan of why I was called in to do this. It's just so that we can start speaking out what we're here to do, making ourselves more visible. One thing that I would love to share with you, if you'd like to come on to the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association site, is that if you come onto the site, on the front page, you can actually access a free report all about flower essences. It's really detailed, actually. I was really impressed when I saw it. It's been written by the previous chair, Jan Stewart, and our existing secretary, Debbie Selwood. And if you pop in your email address into the box on the site, you'll get a free report all about flower essences. It's a really, really lovely one. I think it's also kind of fun to mention that we have one of our life presidents of the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association is the actor Martin Shaw.
Right.
So we're very well supported. And another one of our life presidents is a GP who's very well known, Dr. Andrew Tresidder down in Somerset. And he is such an amazing guy for us, because he's a regular GP. That's what he does. But he also uses flower essences in his practice. So how amazing that those two worlds are already there together.
That's that's great to hear that the impact of essences now is starting to permeate more into what would be considered more mainstream Western science and medicine, and I think it's really encouraging that essentially what is a little piece of magic in a bottle can now be brought into hospitals, and that magic can be used to work on healing people in mainstream science, where I think it's so desperately needed. Kind of expanding on the idea of magic within nature and the magic of healing and what plants can offer us. You're going to be taking part in our event later this year in October in London, the Plant Consciousness event. I'd like to ask you now, Sarah, what does the term plant consciousness mean to you? What kind of images or ideas does it conjure up for you in relation to the work that you do?
It's a big question, isn't it? Well,
questions here.
A big question. So, well, to me, as I've already shared with you, it's the plant world, the plant kingdom, the green kingdom, the nature kingdom, whatever words we want to use. They're very real to me. Very, very, very real. The their first kind of, well, I guess one of the first ways they first ever spoke to me in a very practical way was a long time ago, about 12, 13 years ago, when I first started thinking about bringing up my own essences. And I was sitting, minding my own business one day next to a hanging basket that was on my balcony that was full of kind of daisies. And all of a sudden I heard the daisy talking to me and saying, "Why don't you take a photo of me? I'd make a great front to your bottle." And I thought, this is slightly crazy, but I'm going to do this. And it actually started off a whole way of my working with actually putting the flowers on the front of my bottles. So, and I guess they did this, I mean, most women, I don't know, it's a huge generalization. There are many, many women who talked to roses when they were children and made perfume. The amount of women that you speak to, the little girls of 5 or 6 took rose petals, floated them in water. That's how we make flower essences.
Yeah.
And then made their own perfume from it. In a very childlike way, but that's the kind of magic of it all. So I believe that they do speak to us. I believe the magic of it all now is that we are actually remembering how to do this. Just to go for a walk one day and to sit on the roots of a tree and just to realize that when we do that, we feel better. We start to get answers to the worries that we have in our daily lives, that the nature kingdom is here to support us. And a couple of years ago, they asked me very, very specifically to start sharing this work because they need us and we really need them. And I do really, really believe that a partnership is possible here. And it's already happening and has been happening forever, but it's time to make it really conscious now. So I guess that's answering your question now. It's time, I believe, to make it really conscious and to speak out what we're doing. And I find whenever I have a worry, whether it's personal or professional, what I often try to remember to do, we have a lovely park near us and I go for a walk in the park. And I basically walk around the park and I'll say, "Hey guys, you know, I've done all I can do here. I need your help." And 9 times out of 10, within hours, everything changes. And I hear this reflected back to me by people I work with now. So sometimes we have to actually speak it out. It doesn't actually need to be walking around a park speaking out loud, but just inside ourselves, make that deep connection. Speak to nature. They are real. They are here just as we are. They have a different filter. They have a different, I call it the language of the heart. We need to learn a different language. And the language is the heart language.
Totally, and it's interesting. So many people that we speak to, you know, through the work that we do with our events, and particularly with plant consciousness, have very similar stories about, you know, spending time in nature, asking for help, talking, you know, just out loud or in their own mind to the plants in their garden, or even quite often just going out into the garden and naturally being drawn to a special spot under a certain plant or a certain tree, and actually just really feeling that they're so much better after doing that. And I think that speaks volumes about the importance of taking time to see nature as an active and living part of our environment that we can actually communicate with, and actually has an incredible capacity for healing. And you know, that is one of the reasons that we are organising this event. We also believe the same as you, and the same as the other people that we've interviewed for this event, that there is an incredible wealth of knowledge, wisdom and compassion that actually resides within the natural world and in many of the plants, and they want to communicate, they want to help us. They see the terrible damage that we're inflicting on the planet and inflicting on them as well, and so I really believe that they want to work with us at this time to create a new way of living, a harmonious way where we see the teachers, that we see nature as teachers and healers that we can work in tandem with.
Yeah, they know how to do this. They know how we're all walking into this different world. We all know, anybody watching this knows that the vibrations of our earth is changing. The nature kingdom knows how to live in this world, and that's how they can help us.
That's very true, and also I always remind myself, when we're talking about these things, that actually the plants have been around a lot longer than we have,
Mm.
and therefore I think it's highly presumptuous of us as humans to consider that we know more than they do. Because if they've been around X million years longer than we have, there's a good chance that they might know a little bit more about a few more things than we do. So I always think that's worth remembering. Now, just to wrap up a couple of points before we finish this delightful chat today, Sarah, I just want to quickly ask you your opinion, just kind of following on what we just talked about where you see the advent of interaction with the natural world and with plants going in the next few years. What would you like to see as the next steps, and how do you think that we all, on an individual level, can contribute to perhaps a new way of living with nature?
Yeah, well, what I'm doing right now in my own business is actually training people to be professional practitioners. So I would love to see more and more professional fluorescence practitioners finding their way in the world, because that's how we can help more people. I know that the nature kingdom wants us to thrive. If we just look at a flower that's in good earth and good soil, or a tree that's in good earth and good soil, they are amazing. They come to full bloom with the light and during the summer, and when the light and the warmth is available to them, they naturally know how to go through the cycles of their life. The tree knows when to shed its leaves. It's okay to let go. She knows when to drop her essence deep into the earth and rest during winter. She allows the movements of the planet to move through her. And I believe that this is what we need to do as humans, is to learn to live alongside the cycles of our earth, both our solar cycles, the seasons. We need to learn to rest, to reflect winter. We need to learn to let go, to allow ourselves to feel sad and allow that process. There's so much about, like, oh, I've got to feel good all the time. And then we have to remember that there's the yin and the yang, there's the darkness and the light, and we need to stay in balance within all of that, and just to allow those energies to flow through us. I also work with the lunar cycles. So 13 times a year we have the chance to begin again at the new moon. And when we allow the moon to inform us, this great being that changes the tides on our planets, and works with the water content in our own bodies. It's extraordinary how we can actually work to those cycles. So I would love to see people really just coming back into that awareness. And I think where I come into this is that I have a big vision of many, many people doing this, and allowing themselves to thrive from it as well. For so long, it's been really hard for complementary practitioners to be able to actually run businesses that sustain them. They have to have day jobs.
Yeah.
I know that this isn't true, because I've managed to turn that around for myself. So it's a big passion of mine as well. When we really get to know who we are, when we can project our unique selves into the world, nature will always support us, always. And everything we do can then thrive. So that's what I would like to see going into the world on a personal level. And wouldn't it be amazing if everybody just knew that they can walk into their gardens or into their parks and feel better, and that they feel okay sharing this with others?
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful picture that you painted there, and I really don't see why it can't become a possibility. If people can just allow the awareness to come into their lives, that there is this potential right outside of our front doors, in our gardens, in our parks, in our forests, where we can go and heal ourselves. And it seems to me that the world we live in at the moment is hugely in need of healing on all levels. You've only got to watch the 6 o'clock news for 5 minutes to feel the deep pain that the world is in at the moment, and that so many people are suffering. And it doesn't need to be that way. It's, if we can all just open our consciousness a little bit more and see the possibility of things that perhaps maybe a few years ago people would have considered a little bit crazy. I think that perhaps then we can start to see a way to a new world, a new way of living, where people can take on board these ideas and see nature as a part of themselves, and that we are also you know, deeply embedded within the web of life. And I think that's something that in the modern era of technology we've forgotten a little bit. So it's been an absolute delight to talk to you today, Sarah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, you're absolutely welcome. And just like to again give you the opportunity just to tell people where they can find out about your own practice and about BIFA, and also to remind them that that you're going to have a stall, your organisation is going to have a stall at Plant Consciousness in October at the Regent's University, where the event's taking place. And what will people be able to find on that stall and on your website, Sarah, just quickly?
Okay, so yes, we're delighted to have a presence at the Plant Consciousness event in London in October. There will be a BIFA, in fact possibly a couple of representatives from the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association there. We're going to have a presence there where you will be able to talk to people that belong to the British Vibrational Essence Association, who are practitioners and producers of essences themselves. We'll have some essences there for you to look at and maybe even trial. We'll have some leaflets there that you can take away. So if you're coming to the Plant Consciousness event, please come and say hello. We'd love to introduce you to the world of flower essences and just allow you to see just how practical they are, whoever they are. It's not about necessarily becoming a practitioner. It's about allowing the essences to support you, whoever you are. And how amazing would it be to actually, when we take an essence, we allow that imprint just to vibrate through us. So as we go through our daily lives, it's a real way to take this consciousness out into the world. So you can find out more about the British Flower and Vibrational Essence Association by visiting www.bfvea.com. We'd love to have you downloading our free report. If you'd like to find out more about what I do personally, my training company is Essentially Flowers. The website is essentiallyflowers.com. We're enrolling right now for our practitioner diploma. My own range of flower essences is moonfloweressences.com, and they are made partly through sunlight and also charged with moonlight. They're a little bit different from the norm.
Excellent.
Thank you, David. Thank you for allowing us to share here today. It's been a pleasure for me to take part.
It's been an absolute delight to talk to you, and we really are pleased that you're an active part of our event, and that Stefan's going to be bringing the energy of flowers and of essences in general to the event, and hopefully people will be able to tune in a bit more to the magical properties of all flowers and of all essences and the different traditions that are now gathering much more kind of awareness across the world, which I think is a really positive step.
Stefan's amazing. He'll give a great talk, I know.
We're really looking forward to having him on. We're going to be interviewing him, I think, next week, so that's something for our viewers to watch out for. We've been very fortunate in the last week or two to have some amazing interviews with the various speakers at Plant Consciousness, all bringing their different ideas about what plant consciousness is and perhaps a new way that we can see to living in the future. And it's been very, very encouraging to hear the same resounding message come from all of the people that we have involved in our event. If you are interested in coming to Plant Consciousness, it's going to take place in London on the 4th to the 6th of October. At the Regent's University, as I mentioned earlier. All information about that and how to purchase tickets can be found at plantconsciousness.com. We also have a very active Facebook page with the same name and a Twitter feed as well if you use those social media mechanisms. So once again, thank you very much, Sarah, for your time today. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in for another interesting interview about the world of plants. We will be bringing you further interviews in the coming weeks with people like Stefan and some of the other speakers from the program as well. We look forward to seeing you again. Many thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.